Hello, welcome to CGTN. This is our special coverage on the launch of the Shenzhou-16 manned space mission. Live from Beijing, I'm Pan Zheng. The mission is China's 11th manned space flight. It signifies a new chapter for the country's space program. In a few hours at 09:31 Beijing time, the Shenzhou-16 spacecraft will be launched, carrying 3 taikonauts to China's Tiangong space station. The 3 crew members are Jing Haipeng, Yangzhu and Haichao. They were introduced to the public on Monday. They are expected to stay in orbit for about 5 months. This is the first manned mission in Tiangong's application and development phase. Assembling and operating a permanent manned space station is the last of the 3 steps of China's manned space program. This year also marks the 20th anniversary since Yang Liwei became China's first taikonaut in space. For more insight, we're joined in the studio by Professor Yang Yuguang from the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation. He's also Vice Chair of the International Astronautical Federation Space Transportation Committee, and Mr. Xu Yansong, former Director of International Cooperation at the China National Space Administration. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. Meanwhile, our digital platform will also be live streaming this event. Do stay tuned. Now let's cross live to our reporter Zheng Yibing at Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China, where the Shenzhou-16 will take off in a few hours. Yibing, you've been following this very closely. Tell us a little bit more about the atmosphere at where you are.
Well, yes, good morning, Pandan. I'm now in the Wentiangge Square at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. Now, we are waiting for the ceremony for the Shenzhou-16 crew to embark on their space expedition. And now you can hear the music band and the people are waving and singing. Well, early this morning, people are gathered here and everyone can feel the excitement. On either side of the press area and also the audience area. At this moment, this place is full of journalists from the home and abroad. And this is a very important moment for people to witness the taikonauts to get here, from here to the launch area. On the other side of me are the children from the Dongfeng Primary School and Dongfeng Middle School of the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, as well as the staff and family representatives of the launch system and others. Well, you can feel that atmosphere, and they were holding flowers, waving banners and singing songs to cheer for the taikonauts. Well, yesterday, right here during the meeting with the taikonauts, the 3 taikonauts of the Shenzhou-16 crew, Commander Jing Haipeng, flight engineer Zhu and payload expert Haichao were officially unveiled. Well, that attracted great attention from the home and abroad. From here, they will later embark the journey of nearly 6 months into space. Well, today's weather is very good, and the wind speed here is about 6 meters per second. Well, yesterday morning before the taikonauts meeting, the Dongfeng launch area had a precipitation. But during the meeting, the weather turned clear. And according to the meteorological department at the launch site, today's weather conditions are favorable for the Shenzhou-16 mission. And the 3 taikonauts will attend the ceremony here. And after that, they will take cars to get to the launch site, board the launch tower and enter the spacecraft to the final countdown. The launch of the Shenzhou-16 is targeted at 9:30 a.m. this morning. Later, the ceremony for their departure is about to begin. So let's send the best wishes and wish them all the best on the journey to space. Back to you.
Indeed, Yibing, best wishes to them all. But we still have about 3 hours to the launch. So what will happen in this window? Well, we'll go back to reporter Zheng Yibing later in the coverage. So the 3 crew members for Shenzhou-16 are Jing Haipeng, Yangzhu and Haichao. They've made a public appearance 1 day ahead of the blast-off on Monday. Sun Ye has more.
This is the Shenzhou-16 crew, ready for their 5-month journey in space that will start Tuesday. Jing Haipeng, the commander and pilot for the mission, will be heading to space for the 4th time and will hold the record of the most number of space flights for Chinese taikonauts to date. Yangzhu, the flight engineer, comes from the third batch of Chinese taikonauts, is having his first space flight. Haichao, also a first-timer to space, is a payload specialist from Beihang University. It's the first time for a Shenzhou crew to have all these three roles, and on the eve of departure, the trio say they are more than ready. The Shenzhou-16 crew has a message for international friends too.
For
this mission, we have something special and meaningful planned. We will showcase paintings gathered internationally for the first time on China's space station. Those pictures will come from 10 African countries. We believe exploring the universe is a common cause for all humankind, regardless of race or geographical differences. We're ready to work with all the peace-loving people around the world to draw a beautiful blueprint together.
The China Manned Space Agency says the Shenzhou-16 crew in the National Space Lab will add to scientific exploration, including possibly on the origin of life and theories of relativity. The agency says with China's space station now in long-term operation, with routine changing of astronauts' shifts, it's fully equipped to host international astronauts.
We will actively expand cooperation and exchanges with emerging space countries, focusing on space station scientific experiments and applications, joint participation of international and Chinese astronauts in China's space station nations. China's space station has entered the stage of application and development, a stage to last more than 10 years. Manned space flight missions will be carried out twice a year on a regular basis. It can be said that we are equipped to carry out related work in hosting international astronauts.
China Manned Space Agency also reviewed its plans beyond China's space station, saying by 2030 Chinese taikonauts would land on the moon. Sun Ye, CGTN, Jiuquan.
Now let's go back to our reporter Jing Haipeng at Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. Haipeng, as we were talking about, there are still 3 hours to go to the launch. So what will happen in this window?
Well, Panda, I have to tell you, while the opening ceremony, the embarking ceremony will start soon in about 2 to 3 minutes. I have to be very brief. Well, after the ceremony, the taikonauts would be taken by the car and sent to the launch area, and they would get into the launch tower, and there they would hold the ceremony for just a few minutes. From the Wentiangou area to the launch site, it takes about 15 minutes. And after that, they would rest there and board the Shenzhou-16 spacecraft. And that would be a long time. People will be counting down to the launch sequence. So this is a whole process of the taikonauts when they arrived at the launch area. So back to you, and let's waiting for the opening of this embarking ceremony, because the taikonauts would soon getting out of the meeting room and get across this area and give speeches to the people here. Back to you.
Thank you very much, our reporter Jing Haipeng there. Now, for more insight, let's talk to our studio guest. Gentlemen, it's fair to say that this kind of embarking ceremony for China's taikonauts is routine now for China's manned space program, but every time we can sense that jubilant atmosphere and enthusiasm at the site. What's the significance of such an embarking ceremony, Professor?
Well, you know that for the public, the manned space activities are always very, very interesting for them. And also, you know that although, as you mentioned, we've already been a routinary launch, but still today it's very, very meaningful, because this time we have the astronauts selected from the third batch, and also it's quite different from the missions before. During the former missions, we only have the astronauts from the first and the second batch, and all of them, no exception, was chosen from the pilots of the Air Force. So this time we already have the engineers and also scientists from universities. So Mr. Zhu Yangzhu and also Mr. Haichao, these two members are the flight engineers and the payload experts. So this is a very, very important step for China Aerospace, and that is why the reason why today's the launch is so important. And more interesting is that people are focusing on the eyeglasses of the
yeah, we'll be talking about later. I believe you have a lot to say on,
yes,
on
exactly.
that topic. Mr. Xu, what's your take?
I think this is
As you mentioned, the 11th time of the manned mission of China. After the station was constructed, we understand that's a half-year rotation of the astronauts. It's a handover of the station for the 4th time, and I think with the crew sending up to the space, we understand that the transaction from the construction phase to the operation and application phase have started. We have launched the Wentian and Mengtian segments, along with all the experiments, and this time also a number of interesting experiments are going to be flying on board. So I think there's a lot to be expected on this mission.
Embarking ceremony, could you put this into an international context? Because usually astronauts, cosmonauts or taikonauts are considered role models for a nation. So is this widely practiced, such kind of ceremony?
Well, I think it's starting from the very first manned mission by Yuri Gagarin. That was the farewell ceremony was held in, I think, in Baikonur in Kazakhstan, the launching site. When Gagarin was saying the "let's go" as a final word, it's always an exciting moment, and also we understand the space activity is full of risk. And that's no exception to the manned mission. So we have to be to bear in mind that we have a risk side of this activity as well. So the farewell is not only encouraging the people and also giving the boost to the astronauts for their braveness and for their activities.
Right, and we also saw quite some children, kids, primary, middle school students at the site right now. How much is this an inspiration for the country's younger generation, Professor?
Exactly. The inspiration for the younger generation is very important for us, not only for the sustainability of our manned space program, but also for the sustainability of the development of high technology in China. You know that it is because of during the history, it is because of the Apollo program that many young Americans choose science and technology as a lifespan career. That is the reason they have economic booming in 1990s based on the internet technology. But you can see the similar things happening in China. As you mentioned, this year is 20 years anniversary of the first flight of China, Mr. Yang Liwei's, our space hero's first trip to outer space. But from that moment, that more young talents choose space field as their career, and also the other high technology field. So also in so many years, the high technology field of China benefit from their manned space activities. So that's the truth.
Indeed, and that can be vividly embodied in the story of Mr. Gui Haichao, Professor Gui Haichao from Beihang University,
exactly.
Because he told the public that when he was in high school, he saw the launch of Shenzhou-16, Mr. Yang Liwei entering into outer space, and that's the permanent inspiration for him to go to Beihang University, go into this profession, and now he's a taikonaut himself and a payload expert, to be precise. Mr. Xu, what does a payload expert, the first time in China, mean for the country's space program?
Well, I think this is the historic moment that we have sent astronauts, not from the Air Force, but it's from the profession of space.
The civilian sector.
The civilian sector, to be exact. We understand that the space station is not, it's built for a peaceful purpose. And also we understand there's a number of scientific experiments that's going to be flying on board. We understand the International Space Station has over 9,000 payload and instruments and experiments that's conducted on the station. And the Chinese space station is no exception. We understand there's a number of experiments going to be performed on the station, and a true scientist with their own eyes on site and on the operation side and in the station is very important for the real-time experiences and experimental results. That is, in comparison to bringing back a data form or a video form, instead we have a real professional scientist on board. This is a very important breakthrough for the station itself, and also we understand that the expert on board the station means that we have transformed from a construction phase of the station into the operation phase. That means that we have more scientists that's going to be sent into the station, and also more international partners will be sent to the station, because we understand 1 or 2 persons is enough for the operation of the station itself as a platform, but the experiments and the exercise can be conducted by the experts themselves.
So talking about a Shenzhou-16 mission, is it fair to say this will be an experiment-heavy mission?
Well, I think this is going to be, we understand the crew is composed by 3 persons. One is the expert of the experiments, one is the expert of the structure itself, and also one is the veteran from 3 space flights. So we understand,
commander, you mean?
Among others, yes. So these 3 combination, we understand the expert is going to be checking the integrity of the station. For example, the exterior of the station has been exposed to the space environment, which is high vacuum and also bombarded by the atomic oxygen and many other materials and space debris. So the integrity of the station has to be checked thoroughly. That is done by one of the astronauts. And also the Wentian and Mengtian segment, along with the exposed experiments, going to be performed by the payload experts, which is the professor from the Beihang University. And also I'm looking forward to a number of educational programs, as we understand that the Haipeng has performed many young generation education programs on the station, and that should also be done by the professor of Beihang University for educational purpose to the public and for the young generation.
And that's guaranteed, because we've already heard that one of the tasks is to perform Tiangong class, as we called it in China. Also an exhibition of paintings from African countries, painted by children in African countries, will also be performed by the taikonauts this time. What's the significance here? It's not exactly scientific or technological research, Professor.
But this is also a very meaningful operation. You see that the paintings from the pupils and also middle school students from Africa, they have these kind of paintings on board the China Tiangong Space Station. I believe that the students will be very excited on this, and they will be proud of themselves. So this is a very good communication between China and other countries, especially from the developing countries. So this is not a concern about the scientific research, but also about the concern of the outreach. And also, you know that in the future, China not only recognize the Tiangong Space Station as a national laboratory in outer space, but also regarded it as a very important platform for the outreach. So not only the students from China will benefit from this station, but also the students from other countries, especially those from the developing countries. Helping the developing countries to develop their space technology, I think it is China always recognizes this as a duty of itself. So I think this is a very important and very meaningful step for us in the future. And meanwhile, you see that we have many cooperation with other countries, especially the observation satellite with between China and Brazil, which causes even a very good template for the cooperation between the developing countries. So in the future, I believe many more and more African countries will join this field, and I hope we can have more communication and even cooperation with them.
Right, as we're talking about this, gentlemen, we're also watching live footage from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China. The 3 taikonauts for the Shenzhou-16 mission are going to meet the public in an embarking ceremony. So going back to the taikonauts themselves, Professor Mr. Jing Haipeng, he is now a record maker in China's taikonauts history, because he will have 4 times in space. That's an amazing experience, if you will. You know him personally. Tell us a little bit more about him.
Yes, he's a good friend of mine, and he also watched our live coverage before.
Really?
Exactly.
Any comments from him?
Well, he sing high praise of our live coverage. You know that Mr. Jing Haipeng, I first time met him during the ASE Congress, or the Association of Space Explorers, an organization formed by astronauts all over the world. I first met him there. At that moment, he has already conducted 2 missions, the Shenzhou-16 mission and also Shenzhou-16 missions. during the Shenzhou-9 mission, he acted as the commander of the mission. But I can still remember during the Shenzhou-7 mission, he was very calm to handling the abnormal cases. During that mission, you know that Mr. Zhai Zhigang and Mr. Liu Bingming conducted the first EVA of China in the orbital module, and Mr. Jing Haipeng stayed in the re-entry capsule. But there is a fake alert of the fire. But
false alarm, you mean?
Yeah, but because of the malfunction of a sensor. But they handled this case very calm and successfully they completed the mission. So he was very experienced and he was a very excellent astronaut even among the team. So that is the reason why he was chosen as the commander of the Shenzhou-9 mission, and with Mr. Liu Wang and Ms. Liu Yang, they stayed in the Tiangong-1 space lab for more than 10 days. And also he was chosen as the crew member and also commander of the Shenzhou-11 mission, which meets the requirement to test the technologies necessary for the astronaut to stay in the outer space for a midterm. Actually speaking, 1 month with Mr. Chen Dong. So he was also the commander this time, for the third time to act as the commander. I believe that, that although he's already 56 years old, but his physical condition is quite good. So although, that's the two of our crew members of the Shenzhou-15 belongs to the first batch, all more than 55 years old, but they are in very good condition. I believe that he can complete this mission very successfully.
Right, so Mr. Xu, 4 times in space for Mr. Jing Haipeng. We're not judging his age, he's 56 years old, but naturally, at least physical condition could be a bigger challenge for him. What does it take for a taikonaut to enter in space 4 times?
Well, they say it's 1,000 push-ups a day and
600 push-ups.
600 push-ups.
At least.
Yes. So it's going to be very challenging for the astronauts. You have to stay in good shape because once you travel in space, you have to experience a lot of body changes. When you experience a microgravity environment, your blood flow will change, your bone mass will lose, your cardiovascular system will collapse. You have to do exercise on routine basis in microgravity environment. So elastic bands and treadmills is very important for the astronauts. They have to do regular basic activities and exercise on the ground for training purpose, for keeping their good shape. So I think Mr. Jing Haipeng...
And talking about Mr. Jing Haipeng and his fellow taikonauts, they're now meeting the public. This is an embarking ceremony for the 3 taikonauts in China's Shenzhou-16 manned space mission. This is Yangzhu, flight engineer, and this is Mr. Haichao, payload expert. And standing in the middle is Mr. Jing Haipeng, the commander of this mission. You're watching live footage from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China. This is an embarking ceremony for the 3 taikonauts. Now they're addressing the public.
Comrade Commander-in-Chief, we are following the order to carry out the Shenzhou-16 manned spaceflight mission. Now we are ready to go. Please indicate. Member of PLA Astronaut Corps Taikonaut Jing Haipeng, Yangzhu, Taikonaut Haichao. Proceed. Yes.
This is an embarking ceremony for the 3 taikonauts in China's Shenzhou-16 manned space mission. The commander of the mission has just given an order to go. So this is official now. The 3 taikonauts are going to the launch site and they will be entering space. The launch is scheduled at 09:31 Beijing time in a little bit less than 3 hours time from now, and that's 01:31 GMT. The 3 taikonauts are now meeting the public, and we can evidently sense the enthusiasm at the site. people from all walks of life and from a wide range of age groups, including children and students from local primary and middle schools, are sending their best wishes to the 3 taikonauts for a successful mission. And of course, the media attention, you can tell, all the cameras there, because this mission is quite crucial. It's called Shenzhou-16, but actually it's also the first in the application and development stage of China space station. And the stories of those taikonauts and significance of their mission are also an inspiration for the younger generation of the country, as we were talking about. This embarking ceremony is happening at Wentienge, or the Pavilion of Heavenly Quest. This is where the taikonauts usually stay before the launch of the mission. Now, they're going to the actual launch site in Jiuquan. And they will also go through final preparations and equipment checks. Every detail cannot be missed in rocket science, one of the most complex systems in human history. This is commander of the Shenzhou-16 mission, Mr. Jing Haipeng. He's a pilot, of course. The other 2 taikonauts are Yangzhu, he's the flight engineer, and Mr. Haichao is the payload expert. This is Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. Weather looks good at the moment. Professor Yang,
Yes.
Do you think the weather is quite favorable for a successful launch?
Exactly, as Yibing has already mentioned, the weather in Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center is quite good today. You know that to concern about the launch, there are many restraints. For instance, the wind should not be very strong, and if there are rain, if it is not very heavy, it will not disturb the launch itself. But we do consider about the thunder and the lightning. That will be also a very dangerous condition for the launch. So today we can see that the weather is very clear, so it is a very good day for the launch.
Well, good to know, and we can see that some dances, drum dances with a local flavor,
Yes.
is also happening, and you can see the whole convoy. It is really showing the respect and hope to those taikonauts, not only from local authorities, space program authorities, but also from the people in this country.
Yeah, you know that I've been there 4 years before, also
Right.
in summer. Can you believe that it is the first time in my life that I can see the Milky Way with my naked eyes? So, you know, that's the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center is very close to the Gobi Desert, but the
Right,
sky,
and we can see that tower in the footage. It's kind of a monument to
Yes,
China's
yeah,
space
exactly.
program, right?
The monument of the flight, the space activities of China.
Yeah. Now they're passing through this tower. Now the 3 taikonauts for Shenzhou-16 mission are on their way to the launch site. Yes, Professor, you were talking about you've been there, right?
Yes. So they, as Yibing has already mentioned, so from Wentienge they will take about 15 minutes. Although it is not, you can see that the ground vehicles are very slow. So it takes about 15 minutes to get to the launch pad. It is not very far from the center, but you know that's also there is a vehicle assembly building about 1,500 meters from the launch pad. Also, we have the journalists. We have journalists there. It is most closest place to watch the launch itself.
Coming up is a bridge on their way to the launch
there is also
site.
a river there.
Right, so Mr. Xu, would you say this is a moment of national pride? Because we can see that people waving the national flag of People's Republic of China there.
I think it's a good ambience that we're farewell to the 3 astronauts going to take the hope and wishes of the Chinese people to the station. I think it's a historic moment, and also civilians are traveling through space. And also, as Professor Yang mentioned, there's a vertical assembly building near the launch pad, 1.5 kilometers away to the launch site.
Yes,
that
still a little bit way to go to the launch site, but it's really in sight. Now they're passing this bridge. It's called the Rainbow Bridge at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. Its official name is the Shenzhou Friendship Bridge. It looks like a sailing ship. It was designed into that, right?
We do see the rainbow at this moment.
Excuse me?
We do see the rainbow.
Oh,
shape
yes, exactly,
of the bridge,
exactly.
yes.
Exactly. And it symbolizes China's journey of exploring the outer space.
It is not only the place China launched its Shenzhou spaceship, but also it is the place China launched its first satellite. So that's the 24th of April is named as the Space Day of China because we launched our first satellite, the Dongfang Hong-1, in 1970, just in April the 24th. So. And we can also see the launch pad, the launch complex, which launched the Dongfang Hong-1 or the Changzheng or the Long March 1 launch vehicle. We can still see that monument. So this is also a very meaningful place for the start of China's space industry.
Indeed. Now the 3 taikonauts are still traveling on this not so long road to the launch site.
So this is a video taken from an unmanned air vehicle. You know that in recent years, it is very interesting that during every launch, not only the launch of the Shenzhou spaceship, but also the launch of other launch vehicles, including those from the private companies, we always use this unmanned air vehicle in this Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center to monitoring the liftoff. So they have very good eyesight.
You mean using drones?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Using this kind
but from of course, from a safe distance.
Exactly, from a safety,
And
not
what's the
on the
purpose
route
of
of the launch vehicle.
Yes, and what's the purpose of that?
To monitor the whole situation more comprehensively.
I think the view is spectacular with the drone. If you take from a higher ground to see the launch itself, it's very spectacular.
Right.
And also we noticed that there's some subtlety and changes in the astronauts' dressing. We used to have a very small box and suit with the
That
suit.
is a ventilation device.
Yeah. And this time we don't see it's very.
And it's kind of an open helmet routing for this type.
But you still need it
ventilation.
In the ventilation But I think it's probably built in rather than hand carried.
Exactly.
And also some changes in the boots, some subtleties and changes in the astronaut suits. So we're seeing
interesting to know.
progress.
Is that an upgrade from earlier versions of the outfit?
Definitely, it's an upgrade. I think it's you have hands-free, and you can do many things instead of carrying a like suitcase shaped things.
You know that's the IVA or intravehicular spacesuit is that is to have a very airtight ceiling. So we need this ventilation device when you are on the ground. Only when you are already in the cabin, we can have the ventilation from the spaceship. So when they are on the ground, so they need what Yansong has mentioned, the ventilation device. In the years before, they do have this box. So today, I believe that this ventilation device has already mounted on the spacesuit, so their hands are free.
In a much smaller size, I guess.
I believe so.
It's integrated into the suit. Yes.
So every step in China's manned space mission is an upgrade to the earlier one, and I believe it takes the dedication and efforts from all the personnel and staff in this industry.
We have a team of experts and institutions that is doing on daily basis to improve the spacesuits, the rocket itself. We understand there are 17 improvements in the rocket itself, and also the launch and telemetry and control and all the systems. We are constantly evolving and changing and change for the better.
Right, as we're talking about this, the 3 taikonauts are on their way to the Space Launch Center, Satellite Launch Center in Jiuquan. This is a very solemn and very much honored ceremony for country's role models and heroes?
This time, the Shenzhou-16 manned spaceship belongs to a new batch. It is the first one in the new batch of Shenzhou spaceship. They do have some improvement in this batch. For instance, the electronic components used this Shenzhou-16 spaceship is almost 100% made in China. So this is a very important step, not only for the China aerospace, but also for the electronic industry in China. A very meaningful milestone. And also that there to have an interface between the astronauts and the Shenzhou spaceship, which provide the possibility for the astronauts to piloting the ship. So this time the interface will also simplified and improved, so makes it more easier for the astronauts to piloting the Shenzhou spaceship.
More human friendly.
Yeah, exactly. So this time is more convenient for the astronaut. That although, as we've already discussed, Mr. Gui Haichao is the payload expert, so he's not responsible for the piloting the Shenzhou spaceship. But indeed, not only Mr. Gui Haichao, but also Mr. Yangzhu will be trained for the piloting the Shenzhou spaceship. Every time during liftoff and during the re-entry, we need at least 2 astronauts to have the ability to piloting the ship.
Indeed, and talking about liftoff, we'll go through the details very soon. The 3 taikonauts are about to arrive at the actual launch site. And for more on that, let's cross live to our reporter Sun Ye, who is very close to their destination. So Sun Ye, tell us a little bit more about what's going on at where you are.
Hey there, Pandun. Good morning from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. We are also waiting for the taikonauts coming through here. We haven't seen them yet, but right now you will see we are 1.5 kilometers from the actual launch tower. Right now, the Shenzhou-16 spaceship and the Long March 2 FY-16 carrier rocket, these two are right now wrapped around in that blue rotation platforms. In the next few hours, they are going to slowly come into view. Now, we're really kind of close to that launch tower, and one of the great perks, besides the great views of being here, is that you get to pose your questions to the people who know the mission best. And today we are really lucky to be joined by Miss Xu Shanshan. She's from the China Academy of Launch Vehicle Technology. 谢谢您，徐老师来参加我们这一次抽空来参加我们这个连线哈。现在我们最想问的问题是，从昨天晚上到现在，我们的火箭的状态。
Yesterday to today, how's the status of the rocket? So from or so actually the 12 a.m. this morning, the whole rocket system all on our posts, and the main task for us is that we check again pre-launch all the systems and functions. And right now, the task undergoing is the final check of the status and also seal the whole system. And just now, the commander also check the A rotation platform and the A launch tower at floor by floor, platform by platform. When everything ready, we will welcome the arrival of the taikonauts, because right now taikonauts are on the way. Very soon they will arrive here. So currently all the systems function well. So during our chat, you mentioned that this is your 7th time participating in launch mission. Still special for you? Yes. So this is my 7th time here, and the launch mission is also different from the previous ones. One, this is the very first launch when we enter into the development and application phase. And that's also the very first time for our 3rd batch taikonauts join the mission. And also for Long March 2F, also the 20th time for launch. So can we say this? We experienced a lot, but still every mission is different. And we not really can have a close eye on the carrier rocket, but we know Long March 2F actually very, very reliable, right? Yes, indeed. As the designated vehicle for astronauts heading to space, the carrier rocket is very high reliability and safety. So just in a couple hours, we will very soon hear that the checked, everything normal, reliable, everything's ready. Yes, indeed.
那我们就等等，就是这几个小时它的变化。
We will wait.
So Miss Xu, she's just assure us in the next few hours we'll keep hearing how the rocket is doing from all the checkups. Maybe you'll hear it too from the broadcast here at the launch center. And right now the taikonauts, they are on their way here, and I will let you check up on us later. Pandong.
Thank you very much, our reporter Sun Ye at Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China. So, gentlemen, as we can see, the 3 taikonauts have arrived at launch tower. Still 2.5 hours to go to the launch. What will happen next, Professor?
You can see that some of the ground vehicles are already around the launch complex, and also you may notice that all the rotational platform is still closed. So it provides a very good condition, such as the air conditioning for the launch vehicle, and also preventing from the influence of the outer environment. So next, you may notice that next, when the astronauts go entering the Shenzhou-16 spaceship and close the hatch, so the platform on the top will first be opened. At this moment, the emergency escape system will come into service because you know that after the closing of the hatch, if anything wrong happens, the only choice for us is to use the emergency escape system to ensure the safety of the astronauts. And then we can see from bottom to up, the first, the second, and the third rotational platform will be also opened, and the launch vehicle is standing on itself. But still, at this moment, we can see that still there are some rotational arms close to the launch vehicle because we still have connections on electricity, gas, and also other monitoring devices to monitoring all the status of the launch vehicle. Only about several seconds before the launch, the last rotational arm will be plug off, and the vehicle will all on its own. So this is a really long and very complex procedure. During this procedure, we will have all kinds of checkings of every subsystem, not only of the launch vehicle, the Shenzhou spaceship, but also on the other system. For instance, the telemetry, telecontrol, and the communication system, the landing site system, and also other important systems.
Right, so Mr. Xu, it looks like it's not only about code data and engineering, but ultimately it's about the utmost safety of human lives, right?
As Jiuquan has just mentioned, that this is a human-rated launch vehicle, and so life support system is very important, safety system is very important. So sequence is, of course, unlocking a lot of things and arming a lot of things. Right now we're going to see the disembark of the astronauts from the vehicle, and then there's a lot of salutations before they go to the lift, and then go to the top of the launch vehicle, and then they're going to enter the hatch or the capsule of Shenzhou. And so that once the astronauts are in the vehicle, safety system has to be armed. So escape routes, and a couple of escape routes has been indicated out. We know there's a slide down tube from the top of the tower, so that the astronauts, in case of emergency, can slide down to the bunker underneath. And then there is also, once the astronauts are
right, and talking about taikonauts,
yes,
they are about to enter the launch tower. Walking in front is Mr. Jing Haipeng, the commander and the pilot of the Shenzhou-16 mission van, Mr. Yangzhu, flight engineer, and Mr. Haichao, payload expert. Oh, so they're still having that ventilator equipment we were talking about.
But it's smaller size.
Much smaller. Yeah. And a little bit changing color as well, I guess.
And the boot has also changed from gray to white.
Oh, right. Yeah. Right. And now they're going to take an elevator to the capsule, I guess.
Yeah, it's 9 floors to the top. And then they're going to be assisted by the engineers and workers to slide into the capsule itself. One by one.
Slide into the capsule, you mean?
There's one like sliding board that the astronaut has to go into a horizontal shape, and then they slide into the capsule, and then descend from the service module to the capsule itself, to the recovery capsule.
Right. So now they're taking an elevator.
At this moment, the ground staff mainly comes from the astronaut system and the Shenzhou spaceship system. So the astronaut system, they will help the astronauts to check the status of their IVA spacesuit and also do all kinds of service for them. And also the staff from the Shenzhou spaceship will help the, as Yansong has already mentioned, will help the astronauts to go into the Shenzhou spaceship. You know that there is a hole on the payload fairing of the Long March 2F rocket, and also just opposite the side of the side hatch of the orbital module. So they will come inside the Shenzhou spaceship from this orbital module, and then, as Yansong has mentioned, go down to the re-entry capsule. First, it's very interesting that Mr. Jing Haipeng will be the last one to enter the Shenzhou spaceship because he sits in the middle. So only the we usually call the 03 on the 02 will go first entering the Shenzhou spaceship.
And now we're seeing this spectacular shot from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. Mr. Xu, is this the longest serving launch site in China?
Indeed, as Professor mentioned, that we launched the first satellite from China from this very site.
Oh, the taikonauts are walking out of that elevator. So where are they heading now?
So I think
into
they're
the
heading
sliding
to,
board.
They're heading through to the sliding board. The sliding board, in fact, is a bridge between the fairing and the core segment. And the core segment is, of course, is the service module and the recoverable capsule, and it's covered by a fairing. Fairing is only used for the first phase of the launch. Once it's in outer space, the fairing will be deployed, and the core will be exposed. So the bridge is between the fairing and the core segment. So there's a hole on the fairing for the astronauts to go through, and there's a sliding board in between. So the staff is helping the astronauts to go in one by one. So they're going to be next. I think you were going to be seeing the astronauts sitting down on the red chair.
Right.
Very traditional red chairs.
Yeah.
And
you can tell it is Chinese. It's really typical. I mean,
the foldable chair is very popular. It was very popular in the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
You can see the words on the suits of the ground staff ACC, which means the Astronaut Center of China.
Right.
Yeah. So
they're in charge of
they
everything.
are, as I mentioned, they belong to the astronaut system. The astronaut system is in charge of the training of the astronauts and also in charge of the development of the IVA and the EVA spacesuits. So they will check everything, check the status of their spacesuit, and also helping the and also some of them are in charge of the medical cares. So some of the astronaut system, the ground staff will very busy at this moment.
So they're still waiting for some kind of order now?
Well, I think they're waiting for the hatch to be opened and everything's really, the sliding board to be placed, and the assistant has to go in first to help the descending of the astronauts. So the first person has to go into the service module and get ready everything before the astronaut can be sliding in. So when Professor Yang mentioned there's a astronaut system, the word system means that we have, this is the manned mission is a system engineering. We have 7 or 8 systems to be integrated into one. So astronaut is one system, the launch vehicle is one system, the search and rescue is one system, the telemetry tracking and control is one system. So there are many systems has to work together. So in the witness of the launch, you will see the sequence of the different systems working together. The astronaut.
You're talking about working together. Are they changing
they are
boots,
helping
and
the
why?
astronauts to take off their boots because the boots is no longer needed in a microgravity environment.
Right. So are they wearing some kind of space shoes, if that's the right word, or kind of socks?
Part of the suit itself.
Okay.
Yeah. So it has to be sealed. So the suit is airlocked. So when you have in emergency cases, you have a pressurized suit that you can close the helmet and you still have the atmosphere pressure in the suit. So that is for one emergency cases. So that boot is for that particular purpose.
They're waving to us. They're waving to us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they look quite confident for such a big moment. What does it take to go through that mental training? Because normal people would just faint, I would say.
Well, I think the first astronaut, Yang Liwei, was chosen because his psychological is so stable, so that the heart rate and everything is so. So you have to be very strong in your willing, and you have to be very stable in your psychological conditions. And to go traveling in space is a huge challenge to psychological aspect, because you're staying there not for 1 or 2 days, you're staying there for 6 months. So that is a long duration. That is very challenging, and also for your characters and your partnership to your people around you. How do you work together? This is very challenging to all the astronauts, sustainably staying longer in outer space.
As you mentioned, this is the fourth mission of Mr. Jing Haipeng.
Right.
And some of our taikonauts has mentioned that one of very tough thing for them is to repeat their trainings again and again and again. So that is sometimes it is boring, but they must do it. So that is also a very a great difficulty for them to meet.
Right. So they're still waiting for the preparation.
Yes,
To
there's
enter in
still
the capsule.
at this moment they still have some ground staff inside our Shenzhou spaceship to do the last preparation works for them. For instance, you know that we have many cargoes in the orbital module at the front of the Shenzhou spaceship, because you know that Shenzhou spaceship is composed of 3 modules. At the front is the orbital module, in the middle is the re-entry capsule, and then at the bottom is the propulsion module. So in the orbital module, because you know that today is not different from the Shenzhou-7 missions and the previous missions, because today the Shenzhou spaceship is a crew transportation system for the Tiangong space station. So in the orbital module, we do not need the astronaut to live there for a very long period. So we have a lot of goods, several hundred kilograms inside this orbital module. For instance, maybe some fresh fruit for the astronaut, and also some other biological and other samples for the scientific research on the Tiangong space station.
So we've talked quite a lot about Mr. Jing Haipeng 4 times in space. What about the other 2 first timers? How much will this be a challenge for them? Of course, they're well prepared and trained.
Well, they were selected a year ago, and they have gone through 1-year training. I think these 3 has been worked very closely together at the training center. And the first timers, they were first experienced a few G's of or the rocket boost, and then there will be microgravity experiments, which is very exciting at the very beginning. And then you get your kick in the physical changes in your body. As Professor Yang mentioned, that there will be astronauts will experiencing swollen tongues, because blood pressure is going to different areas and directions.
Right, is that part of the sliding board you were talking about?
The sliding board.
Right,
That's
right.
what I mentioned.
And they're transporting some device into that.
There's one person inside already, so they're putting something in. So when you see the person standing next to the person who's standing, is the fairing itself, the white part.
Yeah.
Is the fairing, and then the bridge is the board is connected to the service module hole. So in between the fairing and the service module is the board itself, the sliding board.
We can just hear the voice of the commander of the launch mission to confirm that every subsystem is okay.
Every subsystem
Yeah.
is okay. So that's obviously a good sign, right?
Yeah, you can hear the voice, some the replies from the ground stations along the trajectory.
So that means that the ground station has to keep a full-time tracking of the Shenzhou spaceship, because the spaceship is traveling in different altitude and different areas. Once you're out of the horizon, you cannot see it, but there's a downstream line of stations that is keeping track of the Shenzhou spaceship, because the crew information is very important, and also life support system requires all this to be a real-time connection between the spaceship and the ground station.
Right. And now the person or the persons now inside the capsule will come out.
Yes.
After everything's well prepared.
He's just assisting. Yes, he will be. The only 3 person left will be the 3 astronauts in the capsule.
After entering the capsule, the 3 taikonauts will still have about 2 hours to go, so they will just sitting there.
There will be a
and doing
sequence of
preparations.
tracking in cooperation with the ground crew, and there is as I said, lots of unlockings and lots of armings. They arm the escape towers, they arm the system that is ready to be.
Indeed, and I heard the
That's exercise
commanding
for 5
center,
minutes.
talking about
is
5 minutes ready.
Only for exercise.
Okay.
This is
that's a
rehearsal.
drill.
Oh, that's a rehearsal. Right.
Rehearsal for the real-time launch.
Okay.
So it's a rehearsal for countdown. So the astronauts will stay in the capsule and checking all the equipment and they have been well trained, I think, to do this, and also to arm the escape tower, as I mentioned, and then will be connected to the ground to communicate on all the system checks and go throughout this whole process of arming and unlocking.
Now this beeping, is that a signal to go?
For the
to
simulation
enter?
of the launch.
Okay.
It's a rehearsal, yes.
Okay. So again, even this close to the launch, they're still rehearsing every detail
Yeah.
to that moment.
But the software of the rehearsal and the real launch will be in different status depending on its parameters.
Right. What do you mean by parameters?
Which means that for some is a simulation, the parameter will in a different value comparing with the real launch.
Right. Right.
Now you can see the 0.
It's a different kind of beeping.
Yeah.
The timing is very important because once you have the liftoff, the rocket is from the Earth they have lifted, and there is a parameter called root parameter that calculates all the orbit because of the changing and the rotating of the Earth and the rocket traveling. So everything changes when you lift off the Earth. So the root parameter is very important for calculating everything, for navigation purpose, for connection and dockings, and for going to the station. So there's a narrow window for the rocket to be launched at that particular time, so that everything can be adjusted to the docking and rendezvous of the station.
Right.
It is also there is a very interesting fact that in China, our definition of the countdown is different from other countries.
How
you
so?
know that in other countries, the countdown to 0 means liftoff, but in China, the countdown to 0 means ignition. So in other countries, especially in US, the ignition will be several hundreds earlier than the 0 moment. But in China, we have at the countdown to 0, we just ignite. So the liftoff time, every time you may notice a voice from the command. He will report the exact moment of the liftoff.
Right.
So sometimes
That's like Mr. Gui Haichao is the first
ready
to
to be
enter.
slided in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's going in first.
Yeah. Oh, they're quite confident and relaxed at the moment, right? And we
Exactly.
can see that they're really a team, like working like a
They've
family.
been together for a year, I think, training and eating together.
Yeah.
As mentioned yesterday, they have
This
already,
is the common position to sliding into
Yes.
the capsule. Okay.
as
And
I
there
mentioned yesterday.
there will still be personnel inside to
Two-man
help them
push,
to.
one-man pull, and then
Right.
he's going to be descending to the. This is the connection of the service module to
Well,
the.
on the left of the screen is a camera of the mounted in the orbital module. So you
Orbital
can see
module.
there's still a ground staff there helping the astronauts to go down.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on the
he's
right
entering
side,
re-entry
the
capsule.
first two windows obviously showing that
Mr.
waiting area. And what about a third one, the lowest
It's the
one
seat.
on the right side of the screen?
It's the capsule seat.
That
Okay.
That is the camera mounted in the re-entry capsule. You can see that Mr. Gui Haichao has already entered the re-entry capsule, and he will sit on the side chair.
And the taikonauts will need. Now, this
Now he's
is.
sitting
Yeah.
there. Yes, he's sitting there.
So talking about sitting, taikonauts can do it themselves. They don't need extra help to be properly seated.
The seat is built in such a shape that you have to sit in that particular angle. Even the seat is designed for that particular astronauts because the shape of different astronauts are different, and the seat has to be experiencing lots of G's when launching and landing. So that you have to be fixed very tightly into the seat, and your arms and legs are folded together.
Right. And to be honest, those are not big seats.
No.
No.
They're
Very,
just
very narrow.
Very narrow.
Yeah.
you cannot.
It was designed to be so.
You know, that's during the development of the Shenzhou spaceship, that's the diameter of our re-entry capsule is about 2.3 meters. So that will be easier for us to handling the heating during the re-entry. But today, because our technology has been developed and improved, so for the new generation spaceship of China, it will be much larger than our Shenzhou spaceship. The inner volume of our new generation spaceship will be more than 10 cubic meters. But this, that for the Shenzhou spaceship, the total volume of the orbital module and the re-entry capsule is only 7 cubic meters.
Yangzhu is entering the capsule.
02.
His leg has been placed to the connection between the orbit module and the capsule itself. So he's descending. He's in sitting position. He's going to be footing on the left, right lower camera. So he's going to be standing on the middle seat before he moved to the side.
Right.
That when entering the Shenzhou spaceship, their helmet is easy to collapse with the side edge of the hatch. So the ground staff must help them to avoid this, to protect their helmet.
Okay, so what's the maneuver there? How can they avoid
so they will
such
use
an
their
incident?
hand to isolate the edge of the hatch and their helmet.
And that'll be safe?
Yeah, that will be safe. Because that the helmet is very, very critical for the airtight sealing to protect them when anything wrong happened to the cabin. If the pressurization happened to the cabin, they will protect it by the IVA spacesuits.
Right, right.
And also, that's
and Mr. Zhu Yangzhu is
sit on
making
the other
effort
side.
to sit properly on that
Yes.
not so big chair as
No.
we were talking about. Yeah.
As Yan Song has already mentioned, each basin, each seat of the astronauts were
You're already calling it a
manufactured.
base.
Basin, yeah, exactly. It's designed just according to the physical parameters of the certain astronauts, so they can have the most convenient condition during the launch.
So there was a reporting of the landing of one Russian capsule where there was a Korean astronaut was in it. So the maximum G that the human body can experience is 12 G. So that long landing experienced 13 G.
Now the commander, Mr. Jing Haipeng, is going to enter the capsule. He's waving to us now, showing full confidence. Mr. Xu, just as you said, the commander
Yeah. He will
enters,
sit in the middle.
enters as the last person into the capsule. So the commander sits in the middle, I believe.
You can see that the ground staff.
The
is still
maneuvering
in-
system
Piloting the ship. Yes.
is also designed around him.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the key parameters he will see and all the key keys
Right.
he will operate. Yes.
Yeah. All the buttons. All that.
you may notice that the helmet of Mr. Jing Haipeng is very large, and this helmet must be well protected. And finally, the ground.
Aren't all the helmets of the three taikonauts designed at the same size or not?
Usually, there is no much difference because that's the height of each astronaut. There is no much difference. So the helmet we can have a standard size.
It's not mass produced, but it's standardized.
Yeah. Standardized.
Because you have to have an airlock, and the whole system is to be integrated. So to do a testing for each spacesuit is not practical. So you have to use a standardized production process to make the helmet and the connection part and all the metal parts and the connections.
But it is very interesting, that the third EVA spacesuit brought to Tiangong Space Station with the yellow belt, it is smaller than the other two with the red and blue belt. Blue belt. So only when the third was brought to the station can Ms. Wang Yaping and Liu Yang conduct EVA.
Oh,
it's
right.
smaller for and fit for the
For
female.
female taikonauts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after all these 3 crew members enter the re-entry capsule, the ground staff will help them to close the hatch between the orbital module and the re-entry capsule. And also,
are they recording or signing off on some kind of a paperwork?
Yes, the commander is signing off on the handover of these. So he's checking all the luggage. Let's say luggage,
right?
All the onboard the piggybacks that he's going to check and sign off the list. So everything is here. He's going to be handed over to the commander, and then the commander is in charge now. So once you close the hatch, everything has to be in the hatch and it's counted for.
And also the checking of the communication between the astronauts and the ground is also a very critical step. You know that if anything wrong happened, we must have a normal communication system which can ensure that the astronaut can report to the ground.
So I'm sure one of the package is with the African paintings. So they're changing the space lab into a international gallery.
Yeah, space gallery.
Yes.
Is this the first time to do so in China?
Exactly.
理论大检查正常。
计算机理论弹道检查正常。
Mr. Jing Haipeng
计算机
is
理论
entering
弹道检查
the
正
capsule.
常。
So once
He's about to reach there.
once he's seated, the person will help close the hatch of the capsule, and then they will be rechecking on the locking of the capsule, and then before they leave the fairing and they slide out.
Well, I have to say those seats are not exactly big, but they look really, really stable and stern.
It's not sofa, but it's not for comfort, but it's for safety.
Yes. So they're built with the strongest material possible.
Has to be also lightweight and also fit the shape and the contour, and also has to be very sturdy.
3小时准备完毕。青岛。3小时准备完毕。酒泉。
We can hear the voice that the T-3 hours countdown has already been prepared.
Right.
So at this moment, many critical checkings have
And
already
different
been accomplished.
localities are reporting their
from
status.
all kinds of subsystems.
Yes, yes.
0号报告。0号讲。3小时准备完毕。明白。
What we just heard is the voice from the Command Zero.
Command Zero.
He is in charge of the whole launch process.
And he's in the Beijing
no,
aerospace.
he is in Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Once after entering orbit or getting out of the atmosphere, then
after the
will be handed over
after
to
the
Beijing.
launch, the command will turn from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center to Beijing Flight Control Center.
Right. They're still using bags.
Yeah.
It's also lightweight.
I think it's for a collection purpose, and then they will be taking them out. I think there are some assisting facilities to be put in the bag before they take it away. So the assistant is taking the bag off the station.
Each astronaut has their private belongings. For instance, the photo of their family members and also their own medicines and also the other things.
Indeed, and that's quite necessary, and it's common practice. They will be on a space trip for almost half a year.
Yeah.
And from earlier missions, we can see that they've also got a chance to even video call their family. That's a really good human touch for them.
They even have internet access.
Right, right.
They can.
And some netizens in China even maybe they're joking that because we know Professor Haichao are still tutoring students, so maybe he will have live streamed space seminars to his students, but that's only a joke.
I think probably a few emails would be useful, especially when you send it from space.
Yes, that's kind of a souvenir as well, digital souvenir from space, right?
But a very frequent video call with their family members will be very important for their 5 months trip.
What's that cane about? Is that some stick or cane? They were just passing through to the commander.
We didn't notice. So the commander is not fully seated down yet because he's still moving around because his foot has to be in the box in front of him.
I see. Yeah.
So there's still something that he's moving around for.
Yeah.
I think checking the safety belt
Yeah.
and making sure his crew is fully seated. And they're helping each other to connect and disconnect everything. So like the ventilation system, the communications and the power has to be connected to the spacesuit. So they're helping each other to do that. I think one of Kane probably is the adapter for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's now connecting.
That's probably the safety belt.
Yeah. No, this is like a supporting system for like ventilations.
Okay.
And heatings in the suit and everything.
Or the sockets,
Yeah,
right?
the socket, yes.
Yeah.
So he make sure that everything is connected before he sit down and fasten the belt.
Their medical parameters will also be well monitored by the ground staff, especially the astronaut system.
You're right. So backing up is so important in systematic engineering.
Yeah.
We call it redundancy in space. You have to have a system that is going to be back up to one another.
Right.
Another interesting thing is that that they are very diaper now. But this is specially designed, and that 2 grams of diaper can absorb more than 1 kilograms of urine. So that is also a very typical transfer of space technology to our daily life.
Right. That's indeed high tech.
Yeah.
Passing through orders now. Still reporting status from
T-minus
distance.
2
T-minus 2
hours
hours.
and
Right.
counting.
So in exactly 2 hours will be
Exactly.
ignition, yes.
Exactly, because it will be launched at 09:31 Beijing time.
Yeah. As I mentioned, the platform, the rotational platform on the top will be
That's the
open first.
escaping tower, right?
Yeah. You can see already in the middle that we can already see the emergency escape tower.
Yeah.
So as mentioned, when the hatch has already been closed, the emergency system will be in service.
Hopefully that scenario won't appear.
The Long March 2F launch vehicle is the only what we call the human-rated launch vehicle in China.
Right.
This is because the reliability of this launch vehicle is much higher than any other launch vehicle in China. Not only because of the launch vehicle itself, but because it has a very special malfunction detection system, and also this emergency escape system. With these systems, the safety of astronauts can reach to 0.997 in the initial phase. But today, the reliability is further improved.
This is rotating now,
Yeah.
the launch tower.
So the
It will gradually open, stage by stage.
Very slow.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It will not open once and for all.
And also we have cameras mounted on these rotational platforms to monitoring the what inside the launch complex.
So right now the capsule itself and the launch vehicle is still powered by the ground. So the ground power supply and communications is still connected by the umbilical cord on board the rocket itself. So the swing off has to be very gradual, and only at the final stage that there is a disconnection of the power and everything. So once the rocket is on its own, it has to generate or use its own batteries to sustain the whole space flight.
So once everything is fully checked, the door to the hatch will be properly locked.
I think the door to the hatch has been locked already.
Okay.
And also the fairing hatch.
And only by doing that, the launch tower can be opened.
Exactly. So once you have the capsule locked, so the only escape route is through the escape tower. So the escape booster, the escape tower can take the astronauts to safety,
Right.
landed by parachute. So
And the
this is
taikonauts are now fully, properly
strapped in,
seated.
yes.
And also fasten their seatbelt.
Right.
you know that the emergency escape tower is composed of some solid rocket motors. Some of the 4 of the motors are used to drag the orbital module and re-entry capsule from the launch vehicle and then take it away with a very high speed. And some of the other smaller motors will change the direction of the Shenzhou spaceship to avoid the collision of the separated Shenzhou spaceship with the launch vehicle.
Right. You can see everything is still going in a very orderly fashion. Every subsystem, as you were just talking about, going through each and every detail by the handbook, right?
So all the sequence has to be followed, and every parameter has to be correct. And if there's an anomaly, has to be raising the alarm for even abandoning the launching itself.
Right.
It seems that they are conducting another rehearsal, T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
We're putting on their
Gloves.
space gloves. Yeah. The 3 taikonauts have entered the capsule.
But this
And now the
moment,
combination of the capsule and rocket is in a full preparation, counting down to the launch at 0931 Beijing time, that's 0131 GMT. And of course, CGTN will have live coverage of the Shenzhou-16 manned space mission launch in about an hour. I'm Pan Zheng in Beijing. Do stay tuned to us.